Welcome back to the Sports Talk Podcast with your host Alec Pecino. Today we are going to go over something that happened late last night, and that is the Rays trading Randy Arozareana. And I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinion on the trade and whether I think the Rays won the trade or lost the trade. And I'm going to tell you who else I think the Rays might end up trading. And I'm going to warn you right now, I might go on a little rant during the video. But let's get started. So last night, about 1:20 in the morning, the Rays traded Arzoareana to the Mariners for two minor leaguers, two decent prospects. I don't like the return they got for Arzoareana. I feel like they got lowballed by Seattle because there's other good offers out there for Arzoareana. I feel like there was. You could have traded him, even though I didn't want it to happen. You could have traded him to the Dodgers. The Dodgers have a stacked farm system, and I feel like you could have got a big return for Arzoareana if you gave him to the Dodgers or gave him to somebody else that needed outfield help. I understand the Mariners needed a bat because Julio Rodriguez is out injured, but you could have asked for better prospects back from the Mariners. You could have asked for Jonathan Clase. You could have asked for Harry Ford. You could have asked for Colt Emerson Hancock. You could have asked for any of those guys. Not the return you got for Arzoareana. And this is the thing that gets on my nerves about the Rays front office. Is they make these trades, you wonder why you can't keep fans. You wonder why you lose the fan base. It's because you make stupid trades like this. Now, I said the same thing when they got rid of Glasnow in the offseason, but that trade's actually looking good. That's a win-win for both teams. We won't know if this trade's a win-win for both teams because the prospects the Rays got back in return are, I'm going to say, 2 or 3 years away from probably being in the big leagues. And Rays, you need to I understand you're looking toward the future, but you need to make trades that actually make sense and aren't dumb like this. Arzoareana is a fan favorite, and he had his own cheering section at Tropicana Field. Why did you have to trade him? It would have been more justifiable and easy to get over if you didn't trade him somewhere in the American League. Because now if we make the playoffs, what's the chances we have to play the Mariners in either the wild card or the first round? Probably high. And now Arzoareana is going to make the Rays look stupid for getting rid of him. I don't like this trade at all. I think that, and I've said this when the Rays have made trades previously, and I try not to doubt the front office. Sometimes it's really hard because they make boneheaded trades that just don't make sense. Like, for example, the Blake Snell trade. Look at all the guys they got back in the Snell trade. None of them are with the Rays anymore. And a few of them aren't even in baseball anymore. Or the Longoria trade. That's another one. None of those guys are with the Rays anymore. I can keep going. When they traded Evaldi, they got Jalen Beeks back. He's not with the Rays anymore. The other thing I'm also going to say is I think now that Arzoareana's gone, I think the Rays are officially It's painful to say this. I think the Rays are selling. I think the Rays are selling. I think Paredes might get traded. I think Lau's going to get traded. I think Siri's probably going to get traded. I think Lau. I think Siri gets traded. Lau gets traded. Eflin. I would have said maybe Pepio, but I think they're going to keep Pepio. I think Fairbanks might get traded. Poche. Yanni Diaz, unfortunately. Because the Rays just have too many prospects in AAA that are ready to come up and contribute. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rays buy and sell. So if they're a tweener team, like I think Arzoareana, I think if he didn't get traded now, that he was probably going to get traded in the offseason. Which, to me, that's probably the better time to trade him because you would have got, I think his value was low right now, even though he's had a good last 2 months of the season. But I think the Rays should have waited to trade Arzoareana till the offseason. Zach Eflin's next, and there's 3 teams for me that I could see Eflin getting traded to. I could see him getting traded to Atlanta because they really need pitching. And they have, I'm not going to say a strong farm system, but I wouldn't mind snatching away a couple prospects from Atlanta. Second one would be the pains me to say this, the Astros. If we can maybe get Luke Profito or Jacob Melton or Jake Bloss, I would take that. And then the third team, it's a National League team. It is the Cincinnati Reds, who are only, I believe, 4.5 games out of the second wild card and the last wild card spot in the National League. And they have a deep farm system. I wouldn't mind taking a couple of their prospects from them. Then we get to Brandon Lau. Now, the issue with Lau is if he gets traded, the Rays are going to have to eat some of the money left on his contract. And the team that's going to get Lau, they're going to get a guy that's a really good. He's the definition of the 3 true outcomes: home run, base hit, strikeout. And I think there's 3 teams that are going to be in on Brandon Lau. Number 1 being the team the Rays just traded Arzoareana to, the Mariners. If we could trade him to Seattle and get maybe a mid-tier, 2 or 3 mid-tier prospects, I would take that. Next, number 2, I'm going to have to say the 2 and 3 are going to be hard because I really don't know. Honestly, I don't know who would take Brandon Lau for the contract he has and the fact that he physically can't stay healthy a whole season. Maybe if I had to guess, number 2 might be I'm just going to say it, the Reds. And then they give us Jonathan India. Because then once McLean comes back, you could put Lau at DH. Or you could have him platoon at second base against lefties and have McLean play against righties. And then you take a couple prospects from the Reds. And then number 3, and this is a team that needs to make a move. And it's not the team you think I'm going to say. It is not the Yankees. I am not trading Lau within the division. I think the third team that could go out and trade for Brandon Lau is the Minnesota Twins. If you look at the Twins prospect pool, they've got some prospects I'm interested in. Obviously, Walker Jenkins is probably off limits, but they've got some other guys that I wouldn't mind adding to the Rays farm system. So, and then you get to Pete Fairbanks. Who needs closer? I think the three teams I think that could go after Fairbanks if the Rays decide to deal him would be number one would be the Cubs. We all know the Hector Neris experience and the Adbert Alzolay experience as well. It does not end well. The Cubs need a bona fide guy that can shut down games in the ninth inning, and that's Pete Fairbanks. Since coming back off the injured list, Fairbanks is basically flawless when it comes to converting save opportunities. He's only blown one save since coming back from injury. And it would stink for the Rays to get rid of Fairbanks, but then I think that opens the closer role for maybe Manuel Rodriguez or maybe Poche if he doesn't get traded. But I think the Rays could get a nice package back from the Cubs for Fairbanks, which would entail maybe Alexander Canario, maybe Ed Howard, who nobody's talking about anymore, maybe Kevin Alcantara. But that's team number one. Team number two that could go after Fairbanks is and this pains me to say, the Texas Rangers. I don't believe the narrative that they're going to sell at the deadline. I think they're going to be buyers. I think they're going to buy and try to add some arms. And one of those arms, ironically, might be a guy that used to be a Texas Ranger, and Pete Fairbanks. And there is some interesting prospects in the Rangers organization. Justin Foscue, Owen White, Evan Carter, but he's up in the big leagues, and I doubt Texas would trade him. But the package, for me, I would have to, the Rangers, it would have to start around Owen White. It'd have to include Owen White, maybe Jack Leiter, because I don't see Leiter making it to the big leagues with the Rangers. He might have a better opportunity if he gets moved somewhere else. And then maybe throwing like a Justin Foscue or a lower level prospect for the last piece to get Fairbanks over to Texas. And then the third team, I think that should go after Fairbanks if the Rays decide to move him, is the Kansas City Royals. And yes, I know I said James McArthur at the beginning of the season before it started was going to be a breakout candidate. I don't think it looks like that's not going to work. And I like the prospects in the Royals organization. And I think the Rays could snag a couple of those for Fairbanks. And move forward and look ahead to 2025. The next guy is Colin Poche. Now, Poche, he struggled to start the season, but I mean, I could see the Rays getting. I'm not gonna say they're not gonna get the same package for Poche that they're gonna get for Fairbanks, but I could see them getting somewhere around maybe a B tier or C tier prospect from a team. And I'm going to give you three teams I think that could trade for Colin Poche. The Atlanta Braves being one. It seems the Braves every year add a reliever at the deadline. whether it be Raisel Iglesias last year, whether it be Will Smith a couple years ago, not the catcher Will Smith, the pitcher, whether it be Reynaldo Lopez, who they signed in the offseason. I think they could go out and trade for Colin Poche. And all the Rays, they're not going to get one of the top 5 prospects in the Braves organization. I think they get somebody that's in that 15 to 20 range for prospects from the Braves. So that's team number 1. Team number 2 is and unfortunately, I don't want to say this, but the Baltimore Orioles. I would be willing to go give Poche to the Orioles and get a package back of maybe two mid-tier prospects from the Orioles. And then team number 3 is the Minnesota Twins. And again, I said the same thing about Brandon Lau. But I think the Twins have a decent little farm system that I think they would be willing to part with a couple mid-tier prospects to get a reliever that could be a high leverage guy, or when Johan Duran needs a rest day, you can use him as the closer, that being Poche. And then Isaac Paredes. I think there's going to be a whole host of teams that try to get Paredes. But here's my 3 frontrunners for Paredes. Number 1, the Mariners. I think the Mariners go out and trade for him, and that's when the Rays get maybe a Colt Emerson, a Harry Ford, or an Emerson Hancock. So that's team number 1. Team number 2. As a team that's been needing a third baseman the whole entire season, because they've been platooning guys at third base, that is the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think the Diamondbacks might go out and trade for Paredes and maybe give up. I would have said Davison De Los Santos, but he got traded to the Marlins for AJ Puck. So I think Paredes goes to the Diamondbacks, and maybe you get back. I'm not going to say Jordan Lawler because that's too far out of left field. I'm going to say maybe Blake Walston and 2 or 3 other prospects. So that's team number 2. Team number 3, and this is a dark horse, and I don't like saying it, the Houston Astros. Even though they have Bregman, I've seen a lot of rumors that they might be interested in Paredes. Maybe to play first base, which, again, I don't know why they would do it. I understand they're pushing for the playoffs, but it just doesn't make sense to me why they would want to go out and trade for Paredes. And now, if any of these trades happen, I will make a video on it. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below on who you think either the Rays are going to trade or your favorite team. Because I like to hear feedback from all MLB fans on who they think their team might trade at the deadline. But that's going to do it for this video today. I will see y'all back here on Sunday night with the first episode of the Baylor Bears Dynasty on College Football 25, and then regularly scheduled episodes of the Fourth and Long podcast on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday.